And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Paul, who started seeing UFOs a month before his mother's death, which we're going to talk about and more. Paul, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
It's going great now that you're here. Paul, before we get into what happened right before your mother's passing, I think you had another or your first UFO sighting long before that. So can we start there?
Yeah, definitely. So my first initial sighting, which really actually got me into this topic again, after the whole 2017 wave, um, because of like the stuff that they started releasing, like the muzzle orb. That's pretty much what I had saw. So I'll kind of make it brief here, but so what had happened about 15 years ago, this was midday. So me and my aunt were on our way back home. My aunt, by the way, she was my mother figure. So we were driving home one afternoon, one evening, and typical Texas road. I'm looking out to the right side of the passenger seat. I'm in the front there, and just tons of fields and just spread out land. Out maybe like a mile to 2 miles away, there's this sugarcane factory, and floating above it, maybe like a mile high above it, was this metallic orb or metallic sphere. And at first, whenever I was looking at that, I thought it was maybe a bug or like something on the window. So I kind of refocused on it again, and it kind of like for a second I'm thinking, is this maybe like a weather balloon? Like it was so strange how still it was. Um, and jokingly, I kind of looked towards my aunt, and I told her, I was like, hey, like jokingly, I was like, hey, that kind of looks like a UFO. Um, and so we both look at it again, and we're kind of just like what is that? Like it was just there stationary. Uh, and once we kind of like locked eyes on it for like maybe another 3 seconds or so, it zipped right into the like space, basically. It just zipped straight up, like CGI, like faster than anything I've ever seen, basically. So that was the first experience I had. Again, that was probably somewhere between 2008 and 2009. This was in Santa Rosa, Texas, actually. So a very rural part of Texas. So that's kind of like what sparked my interest, which is funny. I kind of dismissed that sighting for nearly like 10 plus years or so until like the 2017 wave stuff started to come out and started to be more of an accessible topic, to talk about. So that's kind of what started my interests in the phenomena and so forth. So yeah.
How high or how far away do you think it was? And also, how big do you think it was?
Yeah, this had to have been at least 2 to 3 miles outward, and I would say probably 2 to 5, like up in the sky or something, or maybe because I'm not good with depth perception. Maybe like 1,000 feet, possibly. I'm not quite sure. It's hard to especially at a young age, like dial in what the depth perception was at the time, but it was above that factory. It was visibly in the clouds. Um, and this one, it kind of looked pretty big, if I'm being honest. Like maybe car size or a little bit smaller than that, just because of seeing it above that factory and kind of like I guess looking at the ratio between that and the actual sphere, that's kind of more or less what I remember from that.
I know this question's going to sound like a sci-fi movie, but I wonder if that factory, some kind of alien base that's masquerading as a sugarcane factory.
Jeff, you're you're getting into my head here a little bit. I've often speculated that, and it does sound kooky, yeah. But here's another thing that actually ignited my interest. Um, this was when David Grush came out. I had a friend that had sent me the article, and he actually had sent me some footage of a sphere in the exact same location above and near that sugarcane factory.
Wow.
So there's definitely some activity out there, whether we want to speculate if it's a cover for some type of, testing facility or something, who knows? But I have speculated that just because your mind goes to certain places when you're in the rural part of Texas and it's like kind of the only thing there. And you're like, why are there so many sightings? There's actually been quite a lot in that area. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'd say that I know of probably 3 sightings that have been spotted there.
How far is that from South Padre Island, where SpaceX is located?
Yeah, so that's got to be at least that's got to be between 40 to 70 miles away. I got to
All right.
because Brownsville, which is kind of like the leading town that goes into South Padre and where they have all of the flights and stuff. That's probably about 25 to 30 minutes away from Santa Rosa, but you have to go a little deeper into Brownsville where they actually have like that testing area. I think it's like Boca Chica or something. So yeah.
All right. Well, let's fast forward to approximately a month before your mother's transition when you started seeing UFOs again.
Yeah, that was an interesting night actually. That happened live on an X space or an X stream, if you will. So yeah, we were kind of having a casual conversation. Um, we were talking about different aspects of the government that are kind of controlling, certain projects that have to deal with the phenomenon, typical UFO nerd stuff. Um, so yeah, we were just having a nice little conversation. And much like I do almost every night, I go to my balcony, have some tea, just kind of skywatch. And I've done this for years, which is kind of why these sightings seem very, very real. So, anyways, I had went out there, and the conversation was carrying on, and kind of abruptly, like I kind of like noticed like a light above my apartment. I mean, obviously high up into the sky, right? And at first, it did appear as a star from the way I saw it, and then I kind of like focused in a little more on it, and people in that space were kind of going nuts. They were like, "Record it, record it. What does it look like? What is it doing?" And I'm like here, right in the middle of an experience, like trying to like figure out how to talk to these people, but recorded, but also be in the moment. But so I was looking at this thing, and it was kind of zigzagging like this, kind of just back and forth. And I was kind of like, oh my God, like freaking out kind of a little bit. Um, and then maybe like I'd say 10 minutes after like I had initially sighted it, this orb started to descend downward, um, which is crazy because the way it looked when I was seeing it was it didn't look like it was getting bigger as it was descending. It was like as if it was shrinking as it was coming down. So like visually, it was the same size. That makes sense from where I was standing and looking up from. Um, so that happened. It's stayed pretty high above the apartment still, and then that's when it kind of full stop started happening like every night, pretty much for nearly 3 months. So I started to see like tons of different formations in all like different areas of like the sky, like in my balcony area, like anywhere I could see, like I would see them. Sometimes I would see them even with planes in the shot, like there'd be a plane flying by and then be one that show up and then kind of just fade away. I'd see some of like the typical triangular formations, uh, all of it pretty much, all of like, and another thing that's curious too, that people have kind of tossed the idea around is maybe it could be like an actual physical craft because of like the way some of the lights are moving. So people have thrown that theory out. I still kind of am leaning towards that they're orbs. Now, in regards to cross-checking all of this, I do think evidence and cross-checking everything is the most important thing. So I started to check Flight Tracker 24. I would use Satellite Tracker. I actually just downloaded a new app as well where you can track any drones around the area too. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the gist of it. This stuff started ramping up a month leading to my mother's death in early June. My mother passed away on the 12th of July. And that night, in particular, actually, that was the one night that I hadn't seen anything. So, like anybody in a high emotional state, I kind of just put it together that maybe that was the universe telling me something. Maybe that was my mom letting me know, having these sightings, maybe like this precognitive, uh, like type of situation, if that makes sense. But but they started happening again pretty much after her burial, and since then they have died out just a tad bit, and that's mainly because of weather and whatnot. Kind of been a little stormy down here, so I don't really find myself out there during that. But yeah, so in essence, to all of this, a lot of people don't like to go to that spiritual side of it, but just because of my personal experience, I look at it that way. It might just be some atmospheric plasma or phenomena, but it was very interesting that this started happening that month leading up, and then a little bit following after as well. So I think there's something relevant there. But yeah.
So when you saw these orbs, they look like balls of energy or spherical metallic type of craft.
Yeah, so these, yeah, they look like balls of fire, the typical like plasma things that you hear people talk about at night. The one that I saw 15 years ago, that one was more metallic looking, almost matte, if you will. These, it's interesting though. They wobble, like they'll get bigger and smaller, if that makes sense, like in size, which is like a common thing you do hear about these orbs. Um, so yeah, not metallic or anything like that, just pure light. or plasma light, if you will, kind of oscillating like a rainbow almost. Um, but for more or less, they do look like orange, kind of yellowish, in my opinion. I've only kind of really seen like green or like a slight bluish white type of orb looking color, but nothing like super red or anything like purple like that. I know that there are certain people that see stuff like that too, but yeah, like balls of fire, like literally. I actually have a video too where it almost looks like one of these things is coming up from the ground, like in the far distance, like coming upward. It looks pretty crazy.
Well, let's take a look at your videos and pictures.
Yeah, definitely. In this one specifically, you're gonna see an orb kind of come upward to the right, and then following after, you will see one that almost aligns parallel above it, um, and it fades out abruptly, if you will. And then after following that one, this is one of the first videos where I caught three orbs moving at the same time. I've speculated whether or not that one, the second video I'm going to show you, is maybe a triangular craft. There's several videos where I have that same formation. It's almost delta shaped, if you will. But I'll go ahead and play it here. So here's the first one. You got one kind of going upward right there. And then you're going to see one swing up above, really bright, fades out. Here's one going to the right, then one to the left, and then one to the right again. Yeah.
Well, I could definitely see them.
Yeah. Definitely doing something special there, huh? And
Hmm.
these sightings happen like for hours, so planes don't do this. Yeah, check out that third one. There it is. And look at this swing in here. And stationary. And you can see the trees there at the bottom. I always kind of use like a point of reference so you know kind of how high it is above the ground. You can see the power line there as well. You can go ahead and play that again if you like. So there you go. You can see the trees, line of sight. There it is. And yeah, fades away. So the bottom, and look underneath the power line. You're going to see a faint one there. You kind of see it as it moves across right there. You can see it very faintly. So three of them right there. And look at the way this twists. Oh, yeah. And we can play that again too. Yeah, so if you look at the trees there, this is I'm thinking these got to be at least 2 to 500 feet um, above the tree lines there. So here's one right there, and there's going to be one beneath the power line here that you're going to see come up right there. And there's another faintly coming in. You will see a second one beneath it come in at the same time. Here you go. And Look at that wobble on that.
While you were witnessing these orbs, did you ever get any feeling, like feelings of love or anything?
Yeah, so for that, I always try to have a high level of discernment, even in those moments, just because there's a lot of stories you hear about certain people giving into the phenomenon as like a godly thing. So I try to stay level headed with that, but I have had some pretty profound moments when I'm experiencing something or having a sighting. And I know a lot of people get this, their body feels kind of like electrified, or you get like a rush of adrenaline. Um, either right or left hand kind of starts to like sweat, or kind of tremble a bit. But outside of that, um, not really, just because, like I said, I try to have like a level of discernment with that. But if I really think about it, yeah, there's definitely been moments where like it's just beyond surreal, and it feels otherworldly, really. Like, not saying that that's ET, right? But just the feeling feels like otherworld.
Do you ever try to communicate with them and get them to blink?
Yeah, actually, that's so funny that you say that. There was one night where I did the I bought out my phone flashlight, and I blinked it twice, and I did see an orb flash twice, and then kind of like fly to the left a little, and then it disappeared. But I mean, that could have been anything, right? But it's interesting.
I don't think that those are some kind of natural occurrence, personally.
Yeah, I've really gone over this a lot. I there's a lot of people in this community that go the prosaic route in terms of trying to debunk this, and I'm all open for it. If anything, I'm like my biggest critic. Um, so that is why I said earlier too, of why I use like certain like points of reference, like flight tracker or satellite tracker. There's a couple of like other apps where you can track ISS and other satellites that aren't like readily available for you to see like on an app. So I definitely have tried to do my homework in regards to making sure what I'm seeing is not a prosaic explanation. But so far, I really haven't had much pushback in regards to what I'm able to confirm.
You don't hear any noise, like as if it was someone's personal drone flying around, do you?
No, not at all. No.
What do you think the connection, or at least possible connection, to these are with your mother?
There's like that precognition thing that people talk about, right? I have like a feeling that these experiences might be a version of that leading up to death. And, you do hear a lot of stories where trauma is associated to the phenomena or having a sighting, right? So maybe it has something to do with that. Because I know, like I said, whenever I started seeing them, I was going through a rough time in my life. I'll be honest, I had been unemployed at the time, kind of had been struggling financially and dealing with a lot of other stress in my life at the moment when they first started too. So I'm not quite sure if it's the trauma and its association to the phenomena. I know people talk about um, us being like an interface with the phenomenon, maybe somehow we're tapping into their dimension, or they're tapping into our dimension once, like, I guess the level of consciousness kind of aligns with that frequency or reality wherever they exist in, right? So there's that idea, but I'm honestly not quite sure at this time. I have more questions than I do answers, honestly, with this. And I feel grateful in the sense, but I also feel like this is something that I might just think about for the rest of my life, and I have to kind of choose how I want to think about this now, and how I can maybe utilize that in a positive ways. I know that other people have a hard time dealing with this type of thing, and that's a lot of where I've kind of shifted my focus, is trying to maybe help others too. That now that I've been heavily influenced or experienced, whatever you want to call it, right? I just want to be able to have those types of conversations. And there's been times where I have been a little distraught or confused, and I've had people like Mac, my friend who had been on your show previously, my friend Christian, a ton of people in the community, my wife, of course, you know, trying to just keep myself distracted, but also at the same time have those conversations still. Because you don't also want to look away from this thing, and then it kind of like slaps you right back in the face, like with some type of ontological shock, especially because when you look at how this topic is progressing, it's starting to just ramp up even more and more with how it's being pushed into the media, how actually people are having more sightings too. So I think it's just ultimately what I'm trying to say is I think it's healthy for me to just talk about it, but try to not um, go too off of the deep end on the woo, because um, I do think evidence and documentation is important, and it, as well, to my other point about talking to people who are having a hard time dealing with this, I can try to help those people now at this point in my life, because now I've been over that hump. I've dealt with the trauma before, during, and after having these experiences, and I really think that that's for a reason. You know, certain people say like, you know, people are afraid to say, actually, I think, you know, that they were chosen. But I think that's actually a good thing to say that sometimes. Like, I think everybody is chosen to have these certain experiences for a reason, like good or bad. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where I've landed with all of this. I'm still not quite sure about really any of it. I'm trying my best to, you know, document this and be as factual as possible with providing, you know, that documentation, like I said. So yeah,
Has your wife gone outside and witnessed them with you?
absolutely, absolutely. So um, that one with the three orbs, my wife was with me when whenever I had filmed that. And actually that night, I believe we had saw close to 40 to 50 orbs that night within a span of like 20 minutes to an hour.
Wow.
Like it was flooded. Yeah. And she saw them. And actually, I was on a live space as well that night. And she was standing out there with me, and everybody in that stream, uh, they were able to hear me and my wife in real time, kind of like, look at that. Do you see that? And that's kind of like the that's kind of a great thing about being able to have those streams too, is that in real time too, I would upload those videos, and you know, of course, I have like the time marker on it, so you could easily cross check it if you needed to. But yeah, she's seen them with me, so that actually is a big deal for me. in a way, because it makes me feel like I'm not as crazy, if I'm being honest, to have somebody else be there with me and say, like, yeah, that's not a plane. Yeah, like, whoa, like that's happening. Like, why are there so many of them? Like, that's so validating for me. So I feel lucky.
Do you ever get some sort of intuition or feeling like you need to go outside and then you'll go outside and see them?
Absolutely. Just you asking me that question, like I get the chills just hearing you ask that, because I do get that. I definitely do. I'm not saying that every time too that I've gotten a result of a sighting, but I'd say at least 90% of the time that I've had that feeling or inkling, if you will, it's definitely shown itself.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term, but if you are, would you consider yourself a star seed or perhaps somebody who was an ET prior to this life?
I don't, just because I haven't gotten much into that aspect of being an experiencer. I do like to think though that maybe there's something ancestral there. Maybe these things are like primordial light beings or something that have evolved, uh, and that are kind of living with us as maybe some type of guide or something. That's something that's come across my mind. Um, Honestly, I don't know what to think about it, but I definitely think there is a spiritual connection. Um, and like I said earlier, I'm trying to rationalize that as much as possible. I just want to be able to talk about this and show that there is something happening out there, whether it's some atmospheric phenomena and people are seeing it worldwide, because that's really where I'm coming from with it, is the fact that these things are ramping up for a lot of people, and a lot of people in the community that I know personally, and very similar to sightings, like almost identical. Um, so I just think that it's important, like I said, to talk about. I think it's important to listen to people that do have these experiences. But to your main question, yeah, I don't know about the whole starseed thing or child thing, but who knows, right? Like we are maybe some type of concoction or some type of hybrid, right? And we might just be a product of that. So I leave everything on the table.
I didn't mention this in the beginning, but you are a musician, a singer, and a band called Lead Tree. Do you write music about these sightings?
Yeah, actually, a lot of the music that I have written in the past and more recently, especially with these sightings, have a lot to deal with the phenomenon. And when I say that, I'm not trying to just encompass like, um, everybody kind of goes to the non-human intelligence side of the phenomena, but I've always looked at life or our humanity as the phenomena in essence. Um, so I've always been like a type of person where I like double entendres, like in songs, like double meaning stuff, because I think in a lot of ways that's just how life is, much like the phenomena. So yeah, there's actually a song from my band called Spell of Reflection, kind of relevant to what we were talking about earlier, like what this phenomena could be, like maybe a reflection of oneself, uh, maybe getting in tune with a higher reality, something. But I'm not smart enough, right? Of course, to even speculate. But I do think that there is some type of reflection in oneself and in life that can quite literally be projected either through something phenomenal outside in the sky, or even through art and music, and I've always found myself, expressing myself through art. Even as a young kid, I've always been like a drawer. Uh, I've always been around musicians my whole life. I started pretty much around like 12 or 13 years old. I'm 29 now, so yeah, that hasn't stopped at all. But yeah, I to your initial question, yes, I've definitely written songs in regards to the phenomena. But like I said, I kind of like to encompass that with everything, not just these experiences and whatnot. Because I feel like I would honestly do a disservice on my own life and the ones that I love if I didn't write about them or express, myself.
I noticed there's a picture of a UFO behind you. Did you paint
Oh
that?
yeah, no, not at all. That's a Van Gogh interpretation of a flying saucer.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Well, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Oh, absolutely. I'm always open to questions in regards to people who are experiencers, who aren't experiencers, who maybe want to learn more. Um, I do host X spaces sometimes in regards to the whole UFO topic. So sometimes I'll throw up a couple of rooms a week, if not once a week, and we'll kind of have critical thinking discussions. Um, yeah, and we got a ton of great things going on. I think next week is UFO Twitter week, so there's going to be a lot of great panelists and speakers on there as well. That's going to be hosted by the Astral. He does a lot of good content on there in regards to kind of keeping the community elevated. But yeah, definitely, if anybody ever wants to talk about their experience, or if they want to ask me about mine, or maybe just get involved in talking in these open forum rooms, give me a follow. At UFO Spidey is my handle. It's at UFO underscore Spidey. And yeah, so that's pretty much where I'm at, really, when it comes to kind of discussing this topic and sharing information and supporting like-minded individuals. So yeah.
Do you think that you can get them to show up at will? Like if you went to another city and went outside and looked for them, do you think that you would see them?
I've thought about that actually. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. I haven't tried it, um, but I have seen them in two different cities, right? They're not too far away, to be honest. Um, but I'd like to maybe think so. I've thought about trying that. And again, not like in the sense, because I know that there's a big handful of people in the community that don't really believe in doing like CE5 or heist events and stuff, because they think that, well, you could just be attracting a demon at your doorstep type of thing, right? Um, but I don't know. I don't look at it that way. Nor do I use like a specific protocol or anything. Um, I've kind of just said it like this, like at this point, it's just there. Like it's just a part of my life. Like uh, I'm not necessarily going out there to summon them or anything. It's kind of more like what you're saying. Like I've gotten that feeling, and I'll go out there and have that experience. So it's more or less kind of like that. But it is definitely something I'm curious about, just because I want to see if this is maybe something a little more broader, if you will, right? So
Do you feel that what you're seeing is benevolent?
yeah, yeah. I don't. I haven't gotten an inkling of anything spooky, really, other than that first sighting where I told you, or I'm sorry, the second one that happened above my apartment that happened in a live space. That one, I got a little spooked out because there was a ton of people in there. They were all talking at me, trying to like get me to record it. A couple of people were actually like joking around about the abduction thing and whatnot, which is like never cool to hear, right? Um, but I kind of like got over it after that night. I was like, no, like it was just people like getting the best of a very heightened moment, right? Of an experience. So yeah, I don't really look at it that way. Like I said, even if I'm just seeing some plasma ball phenomena there and it has nothing to do with spirituality, cool. But it kind of seems like these things are common, right? Kind of seems like a lot of people see them. It kind of seems like they are connected to the UFO phenomena. I mean, there's a ton of videos and pictures of these orbs um, near certain craft, or just videos of these orbs. Much like Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick said, it's the one phenomena that is a worldwide phenomena that they cannot explain. So, not everybody is team Sean Kirkpatrick, right? But if you got that guy saying something like that, then, it kind of tells you something, right? That these things might be doing some type of reconnaissance or showing up for certain people. Who knows, right? Like, I don't know what they're doing, but yeah, they're definitely real, whatever they are.
Well, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Yeah, so my positive message would be to just always speak your truth, stay honest to yourself and the ones that you love. Um, and if anybody is having these experiences, try to use a level of discernment that's going to help you get through that experience, and reach out to people, and don't be afraid to talk about things like this, because it's going to be harder to come out on the other side of things, really. And I know that from experience. And this stuff can be heavy, not maybe in the moment, but a lot of like the pondering that comes with viewing the phenomenon after can really stir you up, can really, honestly, it'll keep you fuzzy brain for a while if you don't kind of start to distract yourself, or be in the moment again in life. So I always just say, yeah, just stay true to yourself. If you're having these experiences, reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, and help yourself. Do some meditation. Uh, Go do something with your family or friends. I always say that. There's more to life than the phenomenon, and we're living it here with our humanity.
Paul, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.